Hey Yvette, nice to see you again.
It's good to see you, Steve.
We're living in interesting times. Obviously, service providers are undergoing this incredible transition right now in terms of technology from hardware to software and from switch networks to cloud. Where do you think the future lies for your service provider customers? Where do they end up? Is it all a cloud at some point? Do they end up looking more like an OTT than a traditional tier one?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think what you're seeing with all of this software-defined networking and this whole switch to automation and network transition, it's all about enabling services in a much more scalable and easy fashion, right? So I think that's what I see, is a better quality of experience, easier service enablement, and I see service providers really moving to that whole nimbleness of being able to offer services.
Yeah, and how long is that going to take? Because in terms of just the virtualization part of it, or really the infrastructure piece of it, it's taken 4 years for us to get to the point at which it still doesn't work right now, as far as interoperability between different solutions, or the type of consensus around how to do things that we usually establish in the telecom industry in a couple of years. So where, first of all, what's holding us up? And secondly, when are we going to get through that stage, do you think?
Yeah, well, you and I have talked about this several times. You're very well aware of the fact that the entire virtualization has taken so many different paths and so many approaches that they're all good and they all have good intent, but the point is they're all different, right? So I think one of it is the unification of where open source fits in, where open standards fit in, where interoperability plugs in, and I think that we're working through that. You're helping with that. Many discussions on that front. I also think what's interesting to me is that it used to be the big talk was virtualization and SDN, and I think now the real end game is automation, and so it's almost like SDN. The SDN discussions turned into an automation discussion.
It has, we just did a survey of 150 service providers, asking them what the most important component of digital transformation was, and number one was process automation. So, you're absolutely right. And that's just, in some ways, emerged out of left field as the conclusion of everything which we're doing. Is that something which Cisco is particularly well placed to help with enabling for its customers?
I think so. I think it becomes the future of networking. So look, a year ago, as you and I well know, that discussion would have been about software-defined networking, about enabling virtualization, maybe NFVI, and I think the fact that all of that's moving to the background and we're saying, let's just get all of this interoperable and let's talk about the real end game, that's what we're focused on as well. And so think about it, Cisco certifies these engineers to know how to look at what's happening on an optical link, what's happening on a router, firewall, and to correlate all of that with people. And so if we can correlate that with automation, machine learning, and create automation systems that don't just do network monitoring and management, but do true correlation analysis and learning on an application level and network level, that's the future.
All of your service provider customers are going through a huge transition or migration. They're on a journey, but Cisco is on a journey as well, isn't it? Because your traditional business model of selling software which ran on hardware doesn't apply in the future of communications. Where are you in the journey of working out how to make money in 21st century software-based networks?
I think that in the past, the industry was defined on systems. And you have to make a system work, to your point. And I think in the future, as we look at it, that our customers are valuing more and more software. So look at the way we priced in the past. Software was free, so to speak. It was bundled in with hardware. And so now you look at what happens on x86, you look at what we can do, what is hardware, and we're defining hardware independent. So I think people are looking at Cisco and saying, you're a great ASIC company, you're a great hardware company. and you have a great operating system and software. And now as we're taking things out of that software and building control systems and artificial intelligence, it really becomes this multi-layered system, and we are, we'll play in that sandbox in many different ways for different implementations, and we have to. I think I love the fact that we're seeing more value in software, and we get more requests on software features than anything else, and that leads to software subscription programs, and all of that I think is good for both Cisco and our customers.
Do you think Cisco is becoming more of a enterprise cloud company than it was before? Is that the dominant culture now?
Very much so. I think that we're very public about it in our earnings calls and we talk about recurring revenue, we talk about cloud software, and look, our customer base is that way. It's not a Cisco thing. I think it's an industry event. We used to be very device centric, and we are moving away from being device centric to being cloud centric, and for sure, I think the whole industry is.
I mean, I have to say, Cisco is playing a real leading role in resolving some of the challenges that our service provider audience is facing right now through the new IP agency, NIA. Colin Kincaid at the board meeting that we had here for NIA really did a fantastic job of leadership in one of the new activities is creating a repository of standardized service models that other service providers can download. So sort of an open source business model for service providers, and that very much was Colin's idea. So kudos to Cisco for staying involved in that and really helping to lead it. So thank you for that as well.
Well, you're very welcome. I think it helps, again, the whole industry, because we focus so much on the bottom layer of how to build an NFV infrastructure to how to build a VNF. And it's not about either one of those, it's about the service layer, and we have to keep going up stack, right?
That's what BT said. Neil McRae from BT came into the meeting and he said all of the discussion that we've been having over the last 4 years about how to get this stuff working, I'm paraphrasing, but he said basically we don't care about that. You guys can just work that out, and it's going to take you however long that's going to take you. In the meantime, we need to run a business, and our business is services, so we're defining these models. And by the way, we've made a decision that if these models can be helpful to other service providers, knock yourself out. But of course, they have to sit somewhere, and the NIA's role is going to be to manage them and keep them organized and keep them updated and really create a living repository of those. And Cisco is a major player in that, so thank you for supporting that.
Well, I'll turn it around and say thank you for helping with that and helping get that to everybody that needs it. You opened with a question as to how is it that service providers are going to look. It's all going to be about quick and nimble service enablement, and so you're taking a big step to help get there too.
That's a great message. Great way to close the loop as well. Thank you, Yvette. Always a pleasure to see you.
Likewise, great to see you.